The charioteer Prathikami came to Draupadi's chambers with the errand dragging at his feet like chains, and delivered his master's words. Revered princess, Yudhishthira, lost in the dice, has staked and lost even you. You belong now to Duryodhana, and I am sent to take you to serve as a maidservant in his house. Some messages shame the mouth that must speak them. This was one. Draupadi, empress, consecrated queen of the Rajsuya, stood stunned. What are you saying, Prathikami? She asked, her voice barely holding. What prince alive would pledge his own wife? Had he nothing else left to pawn? She could not yet believe the world had rearranged itself so completely while she sat in her rooms. He had nothing else. The charioteer answered, head bowed. He had already lost everything and staked you last of all. And then he told her the whole descent. The jewels, the kingdom, the servants, the brothers one by one, Yudhishthira himself, and finally her. Each sentence closed a door, until she stood in a room with no doors left. The news should have shattered her. Instead, after one terrible moment, it forged her. Anger blazed up in Draupadi's eyes, and she found not tears but a question. The one question that could unmake the whole obscene claim. Go back, she told Prathikami. Ask him. Before the full assembly, did he lose himself first or me? Let him answer that. And then we will speak of taking me anywhere. Prathikami carried her question into the hall and put it to Yudhishthira before them all. Did you lose yourself first or your wife? And Yudhishthira, the man who never lied, who could not lie, sat utterly silent. He had no answer that was not damning. His silence was the only honest thing left to him, and it condemned him. Duryodhana's patience frayed. Bring her here, he ordered. Let her ask her clever question in person. He wanted Draupadi in the hall, on display, humbled in front of the kings. Prathikami, sick at heart, went back once more to carry a summons no decent man would carry. Princess, he said gently, the mean-minded Duryodhana demands you come to the assembly and ask your question yourself. He softened it as much as a man can soften an outrage, but there was no softening it. Draupadi heard the command for what it was. A queen ordered to present herself for humiliation. No, said Draupadi. Return to the assembly, put my question there, and demand its answer. She would not walk into that hall to be gawked at like one property. She would make them answer the law first. It was the resistance of a woman who had lost everything except the one thing they most wanted to take, her dignity. When her refusal came back a third time, Duryodhana's temper broke its banks. He turned to his brother Duhsasana. This fool is afraid of Bhima, he snarled. You go. Fetch Draupadi, and if she will not come, drag her here. With those words, a prince of the Bharats ordered the assault of a queen, and his brother rose to obey it gladly. Duhsasana sped on the errand with a horrible joy. He burst into Draupadi's presence jeering. Come, why do you delay? You are ours now. No need to be shy, beautiful one. Make yourself pleasant to your new masters. Come to the hall. There was relish in his cruelty, which is the ugliest cruelty of all. Draupadi rose trembling and ran. For the inner apartments of the queen, for the shelter of the women's quarters, for anywhere. But Duhsasana was faster. He caught her by her long black hair, the hair of a consecrated empress, and dragged her, stumbling and crying out, through the palace and into the assembly of kings. It is with a shudder that the epic itself tells this. How the sons of Dhritarashtra stooped to the vilest deed in all their history. She was hauled into the crowded hall in her single garment, hair loosed, and set before the assembled majesty of the land like a thing that had been won. And the elders, the great, wise elders, looked away and said nothing. Draupadi mastered her anguish and turned on the hall itself. "How could you consent to my being staked?" she demanded, "by a man already trapped and cheated into the game by experts. He was no longer free when he wagered me, and a man who owns nothing, who is himself a slave, can stake nothing at all." She was arguing law in the middle of her own violation, and her logic was flawless. Then the reasoning broke into a cry from the depths. She stretched out her arms, lifted her streaming eyes, and appealed to every man in the hall. "If you have loved the mothers who bore you and nursed you, if the honor of a wife or sister or daughter has ever been dear to you, if you believe in God and in Dharma, don't forsake me in this horror crueler than death." It was the cry of a stricken fawn, and it hung in the silence, and the elders hung their heads in grief and shame, and still said nothing. Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, the wisest men alive, trapped in a tangle of law and loyalty and cowardice, could not find the one word that needed saying. The whole tragedy of Hastinapura is in that silence. Good men, present, powerful, and mute, but one heart could not hold. Bhima's grief boiled into a roar that shook the walls, and he turned on his own brother in bitterness. Even the lowest gambler would not stake the women who live with him, he cried. And you, worse than they, have thrown the daughter of Drupad to these ruffians. Sahadev, bring fire. I will burn the hands that cast those dice. Arjuna stepped in quite against Bhima's storm. You have never spoken so before. Brother, he said gently, this is exactly what our enemies want. Their plot reaching into us, turning us to wicked deeds. We must not become their instrument against our own eldest. Beware. And with a superhuman effort, Bhima swallowed his fire and stood shaking, silent. Into the terrible quiet rose a young voice. Vikarna, one of Dhritarashtra's own 100 sons, unable to bear what he was watching. Kshatriya heroes, why are you silent? He cried. I am only a youth, but your silence forces me to speak. And a boy prepared to say what every elder in the hall had failed to say. Yudhishthira was lured into this game, Vikarna declared, and he staked Draupadi when he had no right. For she does not belong to him alone, but to all 5 brothers. That alone makes the wager void. And he had already lost his own freedom first, so he owned nothing to stake. And it was Shakuni who named her as the bet, which the rules forbid. By every measure, Panchali has not been won. That is the truth. For a moment, grace broke into the hall. As the boy finished, it was as if God restored the assembly's lost wisdom, and men cried out in applause. Dharma is saved. Dharma is saved. The tide seemed to turn. Justice seemed to have found a voice. And then Karna rose to his feet, and his eyes were cold, and he opened his mouth to turn it all back. Vikarna said Karna scornfully, You are a stripling laying down the law, while your elder sits silent, an ill bird fouling its own nest, the flame that eats the very stick that bred it. Hear the truth. Yudhishthira was free when he staked all he had, and all he had included Draupadi. She is won, fairly and finally. and a slave owns not even the cloth on her back. Duhasana, take the garments of the Pandavas and the robe of Draupadi and give them to Shakuni. Hearing it, the five brothers silently flung off their upper garments and sat bare-chested, ready to meet dishonor with dignity. Duhasana advanced on Draupadi to strip the sari from her body by force, there before the kings. Every earthly help had failed her. No husband could move, no elder would speak, no law had saved her. And so, at the very bottom of her helplessness, Draupadi let go of the world and reached for the only refuge left. Lord of the world, she wailed, lifting her arms, Govinda, Krishna, you whom I adore and trust, do not abandon me now. You are my only shelter. Protect me. And her strength spent, she closed her eyes. Then, in the mercy of God, a wonder. Duhasana seized the sari and pulled, and beneath it was another, and beneath that another, and another still. He hauled, and fresh resplendent cloth flowed endlessly to cover her. Sari upon sari, color upon color, until a great gleaming heap of fabric rose upon the floor of the hall. He could not lay her bare. At last, sweat-soaked and shaking, Duhsasana sunk down in sheer exhaustion, defeated by a miracle. The assembly trembled, good men wept and praised God aloud. Then Bhima found his voice, and it came out as an oath that froze the hall. With quivering lips, he swore before them all, "May I never reach the abode of my ancestors if I do not, one day, rend open the breast of this sinful Duhasana and drink his hurt's blood. This shame of the Bharat race." As the words fell, the world seemed to answer. Jackals howled outside, donkeys and carrion birds shrieked weird and dissonant from every quarter. The very omens crying that a doom had been sealed. The evil omens reached even the blind king. And for once in his life, Dhritarashtra acted with wisdom and courage. Feeling the destruction of his whole race in those jackal cries, he called Draupadi to him and soothed her with genuine tenderness. Then he turned to Yudhishthira. "You are so blameless, you can have no enemies. Forgive, in your greatness, the evil Duryodhana has done, and put it from your mind. Take back your kingdom, your riches, your freedom, everything. Go home to Indraprastha in peace." And so the Pandavas walked out of that accursed hall, stunned and bewildered but alive. Their kingdom restored, seeing in their release a miracle past belief. But it was too good to endure. Once they had gone, Duryodhana rounded on his father in fury. "At the threshold of victory, you have given it all back." Egged on by Duhasana, Shakuni, and Karna, he argued that no device is wrong that destroys a dangerous enemy, that the Pandavas could be beaten only by guile, and that no Kshatriya could honorably refuse a game of dice. And the doting king gave his reluctant consent to one more game. A messenger overtook the Pandavas on the road before they reached home and called them back for one final game. And Yudhishthira, surely knowing, said, "Good and evil come from destiny and cannot be escaped. A challenge to dice cannot in honor be refused. I must accept." As Vyas says, "There never was and never can be an antelope of gold. Yet Rama once chased one in vain. For when calamity is near, the judgment is the first thing destroyed." So he turned back to Hastinapura, a pawn moved by fate, and sat down again across from Shakuni, while the whole assembly begged him not to. This time there was but one throw and one terrible stake. The loser, with his brothers, would go into the forest for 12 years and pass a 13th year in hiding. And if they were recognized in that 13th year, the whole exile would begin again. Shakuni cast the dice. Yudhishthira lost, as he was fated to, and the sons of Pandu rose and took the woes of exiles. Barkcloth for silk, forest for palace, 13 years of wandering for the empire they had built. The whole assembly bowed its head in shame as they walked out toward the wilderness. The palace years were over. The forest years had begun.